It's time to mind your business with me, Jamillah Lodge. Tune in to find out how to mind your business with BEDC, special guest entrepreneurs, industry experts, and more. Brought to you by BEDC. Bermuda business starts here. Welcome, Dion.
Thank you.
I am so pleased to have you here with us, Dion Easton, founder of Dion the Creative.
That works. You could just call me Dion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're going to talk about is your entrepreneurial journey. Tell us a little bit about yourself, though, before we get started.
Okay. So I'm Dion. I grew up back in town. Always wanted to kind of help people. So I thought that was going to be being a police officer. Was not being a police officer. But obviously when you get into shift work, you need something to get you outside.
So you actually did? Okay.
Yeah, I was a police officer for four long years.
Okay.
But in that time, I picked up a camera.
Okay.
And that's when I realized, I can help tell people stories.
Okay.
And that's kind of what pushed me to be Dion the Creative and go down that rabbit hole.
I love that.
Yeah.
So did you always have an affinity for taking pictures, or?
No. I always had an affinity for storytelling, though.
Okay.
Like, I would make up stories in my head, right? Like, I have a manuscript somewhere of the first story I wrote, which eventually I'll return to one day, but not today.
Okay. All right. I love that. Yeah. So in terms of you picking up a camera, was it like instantaneous? You knew that this was what you wanted to do, or how did you evolve into creating Dion the Creative?
So I knew a camera was something I always wanted to have around me once I picked it up. But if it wasn't for my best friend and my oldest friend, Chris, if it wasn't for Chris, probably wouldn't have pushed as hard. Chris is a model, so he needed someone to take photos. I wanted to learn, so it was kind of just like this perfect matchup. And from taking photos of Chris, other people would see what Chris is posting. Oh, who's taking your photos? And then
That's how it's
snowball effect.
Really?
Yeah.
So did you have any like formal education? Nothing?
School of YouTube. YouTube
Really?
University is my best friend.
Okay. All right. And so now you've parlayed that into a whole kind of entrepreneurial endeavor. How? Like how?
So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My uncle owns a construction company. My aunt ran a daycare for tons of years. She raised me, like she did all of my siblings. And then my mom always had different like event businesses on the side. So that's just built into me. So I think
you always knew at some point you were going to be working for yourself.
Yeah, my mom, she said that when I went to school, I would have to take a minor in entrepreneurship or some sort of business because mom's the real OG because she never would let me think that I had to work for somebody else. Yeah.
And I think that's important because a lot of times our parents push us to get a job working for someone because it's stable, right?
Yeah, exactly. She was like, no, I want you to go in. If you want to work for somebody else, great, but have that knowledge of like, I can do it for myself if I need to.
All right. Picked up the camera, did the police thing for 4 years, picked up a camera, took pictures of your model friend, and then it started to snowball. How long would you say from when you first picked up the camera to where you are now did it take you to kind of get your bearings?
In September will be 10 years of the first time I picked up a camera.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's about a 10-year journey to get here.
Okay.
Yeah. But everyone knows me for video now, and I was talking to some my partners, I guess, at 7 South last night or the night before, and I've only been doing video for 4 years.
Okay.
Which is kind of crazy to think of with how far I've like progressed and how quickly. Because we went through some older stuff.
So I'm thinking it's one of two things. Either you're a genius or like you have no social life because all you do is work.
So it's weird because there's never a time I don't have my camera. Like they can't see it. My camera's off camera right now.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a part of me.
Part of
it's
you.
an
It's like
extension
another
of me.
appendage.
So even when I'm out at social events, I may not have it all up in your face and shooting every 5 seconds, but it's always there, and I can't switch that part of my brain off now. So it's just kind of, even now I'm like, I know where I want to move my camera to right now. But
yeah. Focus on me.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So what were some of the first kind of steps that you took once you realized, I found it, this is what I'm doing, it's going to be pictures, it's going to be video. What were some of the first things that you did to establish that, like kind of formally?
I found a mentor.
Okay.
Or actually, a mentor kind of found me. I still don't even know how we properly like I got on set with him. So Nori and Brandon.
Shout out to Nori.
Yeah, shout out to Nori. Nori and Brandon both kind of mentored me in those early days. Like if I had a question, they had no problem answering. To this day, they're still like that. That was probably the biggest one because there's not many Bermudians that are photographers or videographers, let alone both. Nori can do both, sticks a photo. Brandon's like me, he does both, back and forth. So Brandon and Nori, like shout out to them, like for real. Like that's everything I needed.
Yeah.
Because I'm a hands-on learner.
Okay.
Classrooms don't work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. And we're like, go to class, write your business plan. No, I think once you know how you learn, you have to, follow that path or else it's going to be hard, right? Yep. I do think that, talking about Nuri, that I feel like, and I'll ask your opinion, I feel like for creatives in Bermuda, it can be a bit of a challenge to switch from just purely expressing your creativity and your artistic works to monetizing that and figuring out how to actually get paid and live off of that. And I think Nuri has done a great job, Nuri and Brandon have done a great job of doing that. So what do you think is the missing link or the gap for others who are creative like yourself to take the leap into actually being able to monetize it?
It's thinking of yourself as a business. Like, yes, we're artists, we're creatives, whatever label you want to use for yourself. We have this artistic ability, but once you start doing it for somebody else, now you're a business. Besides the fact of you're good at what you do, you also know how to, you need to know how to market it. You need to know how to charge, which I cannot explain. It's just, you just have to figure it out. One day you got to raise your price. Oh, this is too high. Cool, bring it back down. You just got to go through that trial and error, which is very similar to what we do as artists. So if you just change your mindset just a little bit, it's like, oh, this is a business now. Like, yes, my art is important, but the business is arguably more important if you want to monetize it, you want to make money.
So what would you say is the best bit of advice that you were given when it came to that?
That's a tough one. Oh, that's a tough one. I would say, so everybody that I've spoken to, so not just Nori or Brandon, Kian as well, from a lot of people know him from Birmingham, so Vibes Alliance, depending on how old you are.
I remember both of them.
Yeah, I remember tail end. But just those three are probably like they're right now biggest mentors. Felix is new, but he's also been very like hands-on with me. And they all say just pick your lane. And once you pick your lane, stick to it. But then figure out why that's your lane. Don't just let your lane be your lane. Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is, I do think that as a creative, right, you have the things that you enjoy doing, that you're passionate about, that if people just left you alone, you would just do that and be happy if you didn't have to buy groceries or pay rent, that you would just do that thing. What is your thought around having to identify the thing that you can sell, which may not be the thing that you're passionate about? Like, what is your advice to others who are kind of like, oh, I don't want to do that because I don't like it because that's not why I got into taking pictures. Like, how do you manage that?
So that's part of the reason why I joined Seven Self.
Okay.
Is I love to photograph and document the community, right? But most of the time, there's no money in that because you're doing it for the love of it. You're doing it because, oh, my auntie has this really cool thing that she does every year, and I want to capture that. She doesn't have a budget, but I have the skills, so I'm going to do it. So then you have to figure out, well, what can you do artistically where you won't pull your eyes out and you can make money?
Right.
So for me, it's making commercials for businesses, for bigger corporations, and then sometimes those things might coexist, but you just got to figure out what can you do where I'm not going to want to just say, you know what, I'm done with this. And that's the biggest thing. Once you figure out that one thing, some people it's headshots.
Yeah.
Some people it's weddings. I can't shoot weddings because I get too invested in the story, and then it's not.
What you mean?
Shooting a wedding is like, it's a very intimate moment, right?
Yeah.
So I get invested in their story, and then I go above and beyond, and that doesn't work out when you're doing weddings.
In terms of the timing and what you charge for, time on task.
Yeah, exactly. So I might charge $3,000 for a wedding,
right?
But then spend $10,000 worth of time on this wedding. So I know I can't do it.
You can't do it because you'd be like...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I get it. I think that's interesting because I think in my working with BEDC, I've had conversations with artists and trying to have that conversation with them. Like, you kind of sort of have to find the thing that you can actually sell so you can continue to do the things that you love, which people may not be interested in purchasing. And sometimes they're like, oh, I'm not selling out. What?
Oh, you stole the words out of my mouth. Hold, I need to. You are not selling out. You're not selling out. You're only selling out if you don't then take your free time and give it back to the community.
Yeah.
That's what makes you a sellout. If you're just doing it just to make money, and then cool, yeah, you're a sellout. But if you're doing it so you don't have to charge auntie down the street, you don't have to charge the school that really needs this for their graduation, that's when you're not a sellout.
Right.
Because you're doing it for the right reasons.
Right. Yeah. And I talk, not just artists, but in general, it's like some people have this philanthropic bend. They want to give back. And I'm saying, well, you got to eat first, right? Because if you don't eat and you hungry, you're not going to be able to give back because you're not going to have the energy to do what you need to do to be able to give back. So you want to understand exactly what you need to make money and what you need to live. And then once you've arrived, then you can give back.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So put that into your plan. Like, make that part of your whole...
100%.
Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit about this in terms of your mentors, working with established videographers and photographers on the island. How important is it for you to kind of curate your network or to find your tribe, if you will?
Oh, in Bermuda, you have to find a tribe when you're creative. It's impossible. Like, there are very few artists on this island that work in a silo by themselves. All of us have to work together because it's just the nature of the island, right? Bermudians are community-focused people. We have to work together. We have to be in community. So when you find your right people that you work with, your work gets better, your job gets easier, and then you don't have to work as hard. And that's the big one. That's why I joined Seven South. Because we all kind of do the same thing between Jake, Felix, and I, but then we also have Taylor, who's our director of business development. I don't answer emails now. The amount of free time that gives, I don't have to send invoices. I'm still in meetings. There's a lot of stuff that I still do help because I don't want to make his job too hard. But at the end of the day, if work over here for me is like, oh, I need to be shooting every day this week, which last week I was, Taylor, you can handle all of that. And I don't have to worry about it, which gives me the mental capacity to be like, oh, now I can really focus on what I do best.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because I think that you as a creative and your network are better at collaboration. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that, but it seems to me...
So, I'm got a hot take. I think it's a generational thing.
Oh, okay.
And it's not a dig at the older generation. It's just that our generation...
Like you're digging.
No, I'm not. It's just we grew up with the internet. So it's literally built into us to want to connect with people.
Okay.
Whereas back when... No, he's not that much outside of my generation. But his generation, he had to fight to get to where he's at. Whereas my generation, we're like, oh, I've got this opportunity. I can't do it by myself. Let me figure it out.
Let me get somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where Nori had to be like, oh, well, who else is around me who can do it? There's so many more creatives nowadays that it's like, it only makes sense for us to work together.
Yeah, it does. And I think, especially in Bermuda, when it is so small, that collaboration is key. And it trumps
100%.
like competition every time, I think.
Collaboration over competition.
Yeah. I mean, we've worked with everyone that you mentioned. We've worked with Seven South. We've worked with Nuri. And so we see the same people. Yep. You know what I mean? And we want to work with the same people. And as long as you're producing beautiful stuff, then...
That's all that matters at the end of the day.
Why not?
Yep.
So in terms of your skill set and how you stay, relevant, if you will.
Okay.
What you already mentioned YouTube University. But what are the other things and tools, or what are the other ways that you stay relevant in terms of your skills?
It's changed recently. So before, because Instagram Reels came to Bermuda late, we all know this, it bothered me to high hell. It bothered me so much.
Why are we always behind the eight ball?
Anyways, we're going to leave. That's a whole different discussion.
All right.
But so for me, for a long time, it was Instagram. But now I'm going through this shift where Instagram's like quick and flashy, and that's just not who I am anymore. So you have to look inside first to figure out, what do you want to be doing? So now I want to do long form things. I really want to take...
Tell me what that means when you say long form.
So I don't want to have to create a reel which is like 90-second stops. I want to be able to tell a story in 8 minutes, in 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
But where do you see that? Because the people who
YouTube.
watch Instagram... Okay. Because, they got 10 seconds. If you ain't said it they have lost, gone.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of my work now, I'm still doing a lot of Instagram because that's what people want and need.
Yeah.
So that goes back to my other point about there's what I do for work. So now a lot of what I do for work is Instagram based, but what I want to do is long form over here. So it's like, okay, cool. I know I can do this very well.
Yeah.
I know how to do this. You don't know how to do this? Cool. Package it. There you go. That's for you.
Mm-hmm.
The people over here that want the long form stuff aren't the people that are paying me 9
Right.
times out of 10.
Interesting.
Every once in a while you might get a couple.
Yeah.
But for the most part, this is for me and for whatever audience I do
Well,
have.
how does that introspection, how did you figure that out?
I just got tired. It usually happens during burnout for creators, right? You get burnt out because you're tired of doing something. And either you push it to the side and don't figure it out, and then you get burnt out again, which is what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or the second time around, I looked at it, it's like, why am I getting burnt out again? I just went
Right.
through this like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
What's wrong? Looked in, I'm tired of making Instagram reels because they're not fun anymore. It's
Okay.
like the newness has worn off, or I'm just not fulfilled.
Right.
All right, so what's making me happy? And then I looked at what I was doing. My YouTube time on my phone went from maybe 1 hour a week to 12.
Okay.
And Instagram went from 12 to 1. So I was like, I'm spending more time here. Cool. This is what interests me. Let's make for here now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there, when you recognize that, and I think that's very mature of you to have that sort of introspection, right? Because you're like, okay, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore, but not just why I don't want to do it, but why don't I want to do it? To take the time to actually do their own internal research to be like, what is this? So long form, that's where you are right now.
As far as creatively. Yes.
So is there an opportunity, or have you looked at how do I figure out how to monetize that thing that I enjoy? Or
So I'm thinking about it. So obviously at this point, I would have had a couple of YouTube videos come out. So I'm trying to start figuring out what that looks like.
Yeah.
But also, I was just in the biennial that opened up last week or a week before, whenever this will come out in April. And that opened up so many doors already because people's like, I didn't know you did long form stuff. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I can. But it's going to cost different.
right.
Yeah,
Because it's more time, right?
It's much more time, more planning. It's literally more everything. So it's the amount of budget that is there for long form doesn't really exist on this island at a consistent rate.
Tell me who is the ideal client for long form stuff?
For what I would want to do is going to be documentary work, which is probably going to be more of your bigger corporate clients, your Bacardis, your KPMGs, those sort of people who have the time, the budget, the resources to sit down and be like, cool, over the next 6 months, I want you to come in maybe an hour each week and come and film this one specific person and tell that journey of 6 months of what's happening.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And who gonna watch that though?
They usually use it for internal things, which is crazy to think of. But
No, it's not. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, like I'm trying to put myself in the situation and say, how would BDC use something like that? But I can see like for internal trainings or something
Yep.
like that where it would be where you have to watch it. Like it's part of your job. You got to watch
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
You know what I mean? But we've always like toyed with this whole reality kind of series around what happens, because we host this pitch competition.
yeah, exactly.
What happens to the person or the entrepreneur after they've
won.
received the
Yeah.
funds? Like, could we tell that story, or is that something like what you were talking about?
100%. That's typically what I would pitch people on. It's like, you have this great thing. Like I hope they don't mind, but I've pitched the Bermudian on. Every year we have the Bermudian Awards, right? We're Best of Bermuda.
Yeah.
And then you see it, and then it disappears. But like, what happens to those people? Because sometimes we've had repeat winners years on years on years.
Yeah.
And then we've had new people who you never hear from again. So, well, there's a story
What's
to tell
that process?
there.
Yeah.
Right. And it could be done in 90 seconds. But if you give me the course of a month and you give me 5 minutes,
Yeah.
I can really paint a picture of who this person is or who this business is.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it. So some of the other things that I think are important, especially for creatives, and you mentioned it, is the collaboration and the partnerships that you form, right? We were just having this conversation with some of our incubatees last night about, as a solopreneur or someone working for themselves, it can be difficult to do all the things.
Oh, buddy, yes, it is.
So can you talk a little bit more about how partnering has allowed you to kind of focus on that creative side and taking some of the things that you may not like to do away?
Yeah, so literally the first thing that Taylor said to me when we started going through the process of like him answering emails, him doing invoicing, all that sort of stuff, the first thing out of his mouth was like, "How were you doing this by yourself for so long?"
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't know, just making it
did
work.
it, right?
Just making it work. But then once he took that off my plate, and I can now focus on the creative side of things, the the actual getting out and shooting, the editing, all these other things that come with the job as well, I just realized that, oh, this is why people join teams. And for the longest time, I didn't want to join a team. I really didn't.
Really? Why? Tell me why.
Because part of me is a control freak, and I like to know everything that's going on.
Yeah.
But then the second I took things off my plate, I was like, oh, this makes me better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can still go and answer emails if I really want to, right?
Yeah.
Taylor doesn't answer all of my emails. But when it comes to setting up the meetings, getting into the meetings, all that sort of thing, I now have somebody to keep me accountable.
Yeah.
Which is also a big part of the team, right? But for me, team just makes everyone better. Collaboration is always going to be a good thing. The only time it's a bad thing is if you're not in the right environment.
That's true.
So I think that's why a lot of people stay solopreneurs, because they don't find their tribe. I got very lucky with these guys when I found them at the time that I did. Had I found them 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready.
You'd be like, no, you can't do what I do.
No, it's not even that. I wasn't, 2 years ago, Dion the Creative was just starting to exist.
Okay.
So I wasn't at the point of knowing who I was, and then I just sort of became a cog in the wheel, right? Rather than being a part of the wheel,
right?
Which is, it sounds the same, but there is a difference,
right?
And had it been 2 years later, maybe that's when I have that sort of arrogance to me. It's like, oh well, I've been doing it for 5-6 years now. Why do I need it?
Yeah,
exactly.
Why do I need you?
Yeah,
I think that's interesting because how do you maintain Dion the Creative as a partner or part of something else? Like, how do you navigate that?
So for me, the easiest way to do it was Dion the Creative is now just my thoughts, my brainchild over here. They might help me with some things over there, but anything that is on Dion the Creative's page is just Dion. It's just me.
Okay.
Jake, Felix, Taylor, none of the guys at Seven Self, they might have given some input as friends, but as far as Seven Self had no part in that.
Right.
Then when you see me on Seven Self, that's work Dion. That's what I'm calling that person now.
Work Dion.
I've kind of split my personality a little bit.
Okay.
Which helps, because obviously they bleed into each other.
Yeah, of course.
But it's creating that line of separation of like, this is where I can do whatever I want. I don't have to answer to anybody. Perfect. And then over here it's like, cool, I'm with the team now. What does the team need to make it run?
Right.
And that's, for a creative, it's very hard, because it was hard for me.
Yeah.
You just have to buy into it. Because at first we wanted to co-brand everything in the beginning for like the first year to get people used to the idea. And then I slept on it and I was just like, no, that doesn't make sense. Because if I'm going to join the team, I'm joining the team. So why? Because Felix doesn't label himself as the model guy when he does something with Seven Self. He's just Felix at Seven Self.
Right.
Why is it any different for Dion?
Right.
Yeah. And that's more of that internal work that had to be done, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. It presents a interesting, because maybe not every team that you would join would be wanting to do that, right? Because some might perceive it as a conflict of interest, that you're still doing your own thing over here when we're trying to collectively do this thing over here.
Yeah.
So how do you guys navigate that?
Thankfully, we already had a blueprint. We had Felix, right? Felix is a model, director. Felix has like 19 different hats, and they're all those big, massive ones you see him wearing.
Yeah, that's the one.
But he wears so many different hats that when I came onto the team, he was able to be like, look, this is what we did when I started, when I did this, when I did that. So we have that blueprint, and we're always chatting. Felix, if I don't talk to Felix every day, it's because either we just finished shooting all week, like we just did, and we're tired and we need a break from each other, or it's because he's off with his family, right? So like there's the blueprint's important.
I think it is, and I think it's something to be said that you have that, and I think it's like you have the best of both worlds, right? So you have the support of a team, which is hugely important, but then you also have the flexibility and autonomy to do your own thing. Yeah. So you're still I don't know, feeding off of that creative energy.
Yeah, 100%.
That fuels, all the other stuff you have to do to get.
And it just makes the whole team better, because like Seven Self loves to do long form things. Yeah. Like that's our bread and butter. Okay. We'll do short form. Yeah. We will, because it makes money. But if you gave us the option of 90 seconds to tell a story versus a 10-minute documentary, we're doing the 10-minute documentary every time.
Yeah.
So it helped for me for over here to do the creative things. I knew I wanted to do long form. So now I'm pulling from what I'm learning over here. It's like, oh great, let's put this into Dion the Creative's world.
Yeah.
But then with the short form, because that's what I did best, I can now pull that to Seven Self because they do it. It's Felix hates it. Felix he'll tell anybody. It's like I do it because I'm good at it. I know what I need to do. But if you give me the choice, I'm not touching short form.
Right.
And that's where Jake and I come in. Which is nice.
Got you.
Yeah.
So tell me about one of your favorite projects, and why it was one of your favorite projects.
Oh, I can't pick one. That's tough. I'll give you three, and I'll keep them short.
Okay.
So, my most recent favorite, which is now done, which I didn't think was going to be done, and the way that it ended, because technically it doesn't have an ending, was my Making Everyday Life cinematic series, because it allowed me to tackle the short form world from the lens of someone who's trying to be a cinematographer.
Okay.
Which is like, it's a really fancy way of saying making it look like a movie. It's the lack to make it short.
Thank you for explaining to people. I was like, huh?
Yeah. So that one was fun because that's kind of what started to push me towards the long form world.
Okay.
So it's that one.
And where is that? Where does that live?
That's
where
just
can
on my
one see
Instagram.
it? Okay. So
which is the issue.
why?
So Instagram, after 2 to 3 days, if you're...
Take it
No, they don't take it down. It just gets buried because it's an algorithm.
Oh.
You don't see it. Now on YouTube, I can make a video today, and in 5 years' time, I do something, and all of a sudden, that video I made 5 years ago is now going to start getting played again.
Oh.
That doesn't happen on Instagram.
Got you.
Right.
So can it live on Instagram and YouTube? Is that a thing?
It can, but then it'll live on YouTube Shorts, which also has the same sort of algorithm.
Okay, got you.
The issue is the vertical world. The way the vertical world works, they want you to have it now, and then if you go and look for it, great, but we're not going to feed it to you again.
So when you say the vertical world, do you mean literally a video that's shot vertically?
Mm-hmm.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay, see?
Yeah, in there. Okay. So that was that one. My piece that's in the biennial right now, called In the Rain.
Okay.
It's last year we had that horrible torrential downpour during Bermuda Day. But 2 Gombe troops still came out. So I followed H&H. I was literally about to pack it in, go home for the day. I was tired of the weather. My mom gave me a call and was like, hey, the Gombes are coming. I was like, but it's pouring. And she was saying, oh, but they're not in their suits and they're dancing. And I sprinted. I didn't care what was going on. I was running through the parade and made sure I got there and I captured that.
Yeah.
And then after the point, I found out which Gombes were the captains, sat down, had a conversation, and then I made
that is so
18-minute
cool.
documentary about it, just telling that story and what it meant, and kind of a little bit, not so much of the history, but that. And then very recently, their grandmother passed away, so then it was this nice kind of tribute for her as well, which is like,
I love that.
Yeah, and then.
And where does that live?
So right now it's only at the biennial.
Okay.
When the biennial comes down some point later this year,
okay,
then it'll live on their website as well as my YouTube.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yes, and then I can use this to announce it. And then when it lives on my YouTube, there'll be a revisit to it, and it'll be a director's cut. So there'll be some more information added in.
Okay.
Which would be nice.
All right, and you heard it here first, people.
And then the third one, which I now have to restart, is going to be Project 50, which is basically the equivalent of my Making Everyday Life cinematic, but Project 50 is basically this like productivity challenge where you, for 50 days straight, you have to live by these 7 rules.
What are the rules?
Wake up before 8, drink, I think it's like a liter or a gallon of water. I want to say it's a gallon. You have to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book, doesn't matter what style, but it's nonfiction. Ooh, this is why I failed it. You have to stick to a diet, can't drink alcohol, which is, for Bermudians, exactly that face right there. Bermudians is not easy. It's not easy doing that in Bermuda, especially leading up to summer.
Right.
Yeah.
And how long you got to do it for?
50 days.
50 days.
Yeah. This would be my 3rd time doing it, though. So it's kind of new to me.
So you've done it before for 50 days?
I've done once. The first time I did it, I got to 26. The second time, I got to like 38. So I've never finished it.
Why 50 days, though? Why we can't just do a cool month, like?
I don't know. That's just the rules.
You picked the 50 days?
Nope.
Or it's something
It's already something that's existed.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And then it's like you have to either learn a new skill or work towards a goal. So for this time, it will be getting used to creating for YouTube. Yeah. So I'll make 50 YouTube videos, so one every day. Okay. Which is not easy. And And then the 7th rule is something else that I can't remember. A journal. You have to journal every day.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like...
all of these things are great for you as a person to be a better person, a better version of yourself.
Until you take out the drinking.
Listen. It's like, can we amend those rules? Can we have a little bit of flexibility and the freedom? Well, that's interesting. I think it would be cool to see that.
Yeah.
Like to see someone's journey, to see where maybe you made a misstep and be like, okay.
Yeah. So I've already done 3 days by this point.
Okay.
Technically, I would have been on day 9 right now, but we just came back from New York and I couldn't do some of the rules. So I'm rather than just say, I put it on pause, I'm going to restart and try to get the 50 days done.
Okay. So you're going to start from where you left off?
No, from day 1.
Oh.
That's the whole point. If you fail, you have to start over.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of final questions. Firstly, how do you measure success?
In terms of what?
In terms of personally, I've done the thing. I have arrived.
Okay. I haven't had my I have arrived moment yet, and I don't think I will until I can't walk down the street in Bermuda without someone knowing who I am.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my goal. That's my I've made it in Bermuda, and then
when everybody's like, Dion.
Yes.
That's when
I feel like I've made it.
Okay.
Yeah. So until then, I'm still just regular old Dion. And even at that point, I'll still be regular old Dion. But then mentally, I can be like, all right, cool, I've checked that box.
But you know what? You are in the best place to make sure that everybody knows who you are.
Exactly.
Because pretty much, like, that's almost the case. Maybe 2 more years, give it 2 more years.
That's what I'm aiming for.
Okay.
But then on top of that, success means I'm telling stories. Because it's fine for everyone to know me, but everyone just be like, oh, you're the guy on Instagram.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to be that guy. I'm like, oh, you're the one who tells our stories. That's what I want people to say.
Oh.
So it's both of them. So in 2 years' time, they'll be like, oh, I saw your YouTube video. Da-da-da-da. But if they're like, oh, I love the story you told about insert thing here or insert person here, that's when I know I've made it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we know. And lastly, for fun, if you could collaborate with any entrepreneur or a creative, whether they're alive or not, who would it be and why?
Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
So growing up, Allen Iverson was my favorite basketball player.
Yeah.
I grew up playing basketball.
Yeah.
Allen Iverson and Dwayne Wade were my favorites. When Kobe passed, I realized how much more of an influence he had on me as far as basketball.
Yeah.
And then in his later years, what he was doing in the entrepreneurial world and I don't want kids, but in the father world of like having that relationship with his daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Kobe Bryant. And just the way he approaches things of like, every day I'm going to get up and do this thing.
Yeah.
Every day I make a video. Do you see a video every day? No, but every day I'm making a video.
Right.
And that mentality of like, I'm going to work at this every day, whether somebody else is in the gym putting up shots or not, that mentality has just lived with me entirely.
So what would you do with Kobe if you had that chance?
I would follow him if Kobe never passed, RIP, I would have wanted to follow him while he's teaching Gigi how to become the next Kobe Bryant. Because she was the next Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, she
I
was.
would love to tell that story.
Aw,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
What a wonderful way to end our
Yes.
conversation today. It's been really cool talking to you.
Yes, thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah, and I feel like hearing your story and your journey can give hope to a lot of young creatives, right? Because I feel like sometimes they feel it's hard to find their place. It's like, how can I in Bermuda, if it's not insurance or reinsurance, do this thing that I love, you know?
I went to Soltis and so glad that I did because it taught me a lot of how to operate in the business world.
Yeah.
That's all you're shown. It wasn't until I just happened to run into Nori one day while I was working at Tobacco Bay that I was like, oh, there's this young black guy who looks like me who's doing, at that point I already found cameras, like, doing what I want to do.
I want to do, yeah.
And then he told me he was getting paid and I was like, oh, I never thought about getting paid for this.
I just did it because I loved it.
It wasn't until 2019 that I even thought about getting paid to do this. Up until that point, everything was for free for the love of it. Which is like, you kind of have to do.
Dang, I missed out.
Yeah, a lot of people missed out.
I'm just playing. No, but that's great. And that's what I mean when I say being able to see yourself in another person. So for you, that was Nuri. You were like, oh, he looked like me. And he's actually doing this thing and making money from doing something that he loves to do. It is possible.
Yep.
And that's why we have these conversations, because we want other people to see themselves in you, right? To know that it is possible. You don't just have to be an accountant.
Exactly.
You know?
Also, if you are creative in Bermuda, send me a message. I answer them, maybe not right away, but I do answer all of my messages. Like, people stop me on the street. It's like, yeah, I want to do this. I had somebody stop me in New York, and they don't even know me. They just saw my camera. They're like, hey, what sort of camera should I get? I talked to that guy for 30 minutes, and he was working in the store that I was getting something from. I was like, yeah, look here, you can get this. I'll send them videos. I just want to help people.
So you're open to that. So how could they contact you if they're interested?
Instagram's probably going to be the best one.
Which is?
Dion the Creative. It's very, very easy to spell. Dion, like Celine Dion. Because if no one knows how to spell Celine Dion, then I just don't stand a chance.
He's like, I don't know.
Yeah, but Dion the Creative, all one word, very easy to find. Send me a message. Even if you just, I prefer to talk in person.
Yeah.
So if you're a coffee person, we can definitely be friends. I'd love to, like, Duchess is my second home. I'm there every day. They know me by name.
They know you. They should name a coffee after you.
Oh, just come in. I'm working on it. I'm like, every time I'm like, hey, I'll do the marketing for it. Like,
do it. Look, that to me, bartering, that's like, to me, is the next best thing.
Yeah.
So much. This was so cool. Dion, thank you for joining us on Mind Your Business.
Yes.
And remember, if you don't mind your business, who will?
I will. I'll mind your business.
You said I'll do it. Look, you're going to get a lot of calls. Thanks for tuning in to Mind Your Business with me, your host, Jamillah Lodge. Tune in next week, Thursday at 4 p.m. because if you don't mind your business, who will? Mind Your Business is brought to you by BEDC. Bermuda Business starts here.